Okay, this video is about how to do a portrait splash screen. So first you go to your global settings here up at the top, and be sure that your target's going to be Android, because we're not going to deal with making this game for Windows, because it's going to be portrait, and it just doesn't make sense to have a portrait Windows game. So it's only going to be geared for Android. So make sure your target's to Android. Go to your global settings here, and then we're going to go to your Android tab, and then you want to make your name up for your game, your version number. Also, you want to have your name here as well in your package name, but make sure there's no spaces. All this can be kept checked, and make sure it's set to portrait orientation, so when you rotate your phone, it's not going to rotate to. You want to make sure it's locked to portrait, so it's not going to rotate. So make sure it's portrait, and then you upload your icons for all your images for your game icon, your 170 by 70, 72 by 72, 48 by 48, and 36 by 36. Also, before this black image here, it said Game Maker Studios. So we're going to make our own splash screen. We're not going to use Game Maker Studios splash screen, because number one, you want to have your own game. You don't want to have their logo on there. So, and plus, their splash screen goes so quick, it blinks so quickly that you don't, it's like maybe 5 seconds it shows it, and you don't want that. You want to have it last a little bit longer. So you want to upload a black image. I would say do 3300 by 1991. So 3300 by 1991, and upload that image here. I'll also put that in the description on YouTube to upload a black image here to replace the Game Maker logo. Then in your graphics tab here, make sure it's set to 24 bits. Make sure the size is 20 by 48 by 20 by 48. You could have it set to 1024 by 1024 for older games, because I know newer games it runs choppy and it won't play correctly. So if you reduce the resolution or the size texture page to even 512 by 512, then it'll play better, but you're going to lose the quality of the image. The resolution is not going to be very clear. So for newer games, for newer model phones, use 20 by 48 by 20 by 48. Then device support, you want to make sure it's set to any device support. 24-bit, of course. Keep this checked. This option, pixels. Amazon, make sure none of this is checked. You don't need that checked. Permissions, you don't need any of that checked. Alright, and that goes for that, for Android. Alright, and then on in your room, the room 0, go to your settings. Your width is going to be 1080, so 1080. Height is 1920. This is a great width and height size for your phone device. I tested this out already on my phone. Works great for resolution, and the scaling works great too. If you have a smaller size here, you're going to notice, especially with circular images, logos, they're going to be squished. Square images, they don't look that squished, but with circle images, they'll look squished. So with this size, 1080 by 1920, the circle image is not squished. And when I'm talking about circle image, well, it's behind this fade image here. See, this is what I'm talking about, the circle image here. This is not squished. So if you have a smaller size width, like 700 or 800, this circle image will look squished. Because Game Maker will stretch automatically, but it's not going to have the right proportions. It's not going to set that correctly. So you got to figure out how to do that proportions correctly, so the image is not squished. So this size works great for not being squished. Alright, so you're going to have a timer image in here, okay, and do a create in the add event, do a create, then you want to go to your main 2 tab, drag over a alarm 0, set the room to room underscore speed, use the asterisk, shift 8 will do the asterisk, and in 4 seconds. That's great for a delay to read all the information before it moves to the next screen, so that 4 is pretty good. You can make it 6 if you wanted to, or 5, or whatever you want to do here. Then alarm 0, then over here has to match, this has to match this, so alarm event, go to your alarm, hit alarm 0, and then it's going to go to the next room. So go to your main 1 tab, drag over a next room, so it's going to be delayed for 4 seconds. You read all the information, then it's going to automatically go to the next room. That's what's going to happen there. Set it to visible. You probably don't have to have that visible. Don't have it visible. Uncheck that because it's not necessary. It's just a placeholder. You don't have to have an image here if you don't want to. You could make it no sprint, but I use the image that way I can see it on the screen and scale it out. You can scale it out in GameMaker Studios by just stretching that out if you wanted to. So I prefer using an image versus the question mark that GameMaker automatically gives you, because it's set to a small size. It's kind of hard to stretch out. Alright, then you're going to have this fade in on top of that. So it was a small image and I just dragged it out large. That saves file space. So the fade in, you go to create, add event, create, and then grab a coded sheet. Then you're going to say fade equals 1, speed equals 0. So it's going to fade in at 1 speed. Well, I don't know why the speed says 0, but it's going to fade in at 1. But keep the speed to 0. You could make it 1, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to go really quick, and you're not going to see the fade. So keep that at 0. This, I guess, sets that in motion where it goes slow when it fades in. So make sure that's 1, because if you have it at 0, it's not going to fade in. It's going to be black still. Then, excuse me, add a step event. Then drag in another piece of code. Then you're going to say fade minus equals 0.2. Then image alpha equals fade. If fade equals 0, you want to destroy it. So after it does the fade, it's going to be destroyed. You could change this 2 to 1. I think it will slow down the fade. Excuse me. If you make this like 3 or 4, it's going to fade faster. Alright. You don't have to have the fade if you don't want to. You could have it just jump to the next room, but the fade makes it look nice. And then set the depth to minus 1000. So when you turn when you go to your game, first glance it's going to be black, and then it's going to fade into the image, and then the image is going to be on screen for 4 seconds, and then it's going to jump to the next room. And then it's going to jump to the next room. And you could also put a fade right here too. So instead of making this jump, blink into the next room, you could have a fade. So you could use the same fade image and drag it in like this. And then it was going to fade. So I'm going to show you a demo real quick on the Windows version. You're not going to be able to see the full screen because it's going to be too lengthy there, but you'll see the gist of it. Fades in. Fades in. See that? So good transition there. But you don't want it set to Windows. I mean, you can test it out in Windows, but I wouldn't make the game in Windows. Just make it for Android because you're dealing with portrait view. Okay, so when it goes to the next room, it has this fade, but you also have this back key that I didn't talk about in landscape view in my last video, but I'll put that code in the description, landscape view, and also I will update the GMX file, so when you download the file in landscape view, you will have the back key already in in the room for you. I didn't explain it in the video. So this back key, you do the add event, do the step, then you want to drag over a coded sheet. And what this back key does is that on your phone, you have an arrow key on the bottom in the navigation area on your screen. You have an arrow button. When you press the arrow button, it's going to exit the game, completely exit the game. But you only want to have that. I would say you only want to put the exit key in there after the splash page. You could have it in there on the splash page, but I would prefer just to have it on the title screen. That's where you want to have the back key at, so you can exit the game when you're on the title screen, not the splash screen. So if keyboard check suppressed, V key backspace, then it's going to end. So you always want to keep it at V key backspace, because that's like a default for your Android's phone. So when you press the arrow key on the navigation of your phone, it's going to exit the game. But that's only going to happen when you go to the main title screen. You could potentially put this back key object in room 1, in room 0 and then when you're on the splash screen you press the back key and it would exit out. But I think most splash screens you don't want to, that's not like, you don't want to do that. So if you press the back key when you're on the splash screen, it's not going to do nothing. It's not going to exit the game. But it will when you go to room 1. And it'll completely exit the game. And when you go back into the game, you'll start all over again. So your game's not running in the background. Alright, so I will also I'll put that code for the back key on the YouTube video for landscape view, and I'll also update the GMX file so you can download it and you'll have the back key already there. I just won't have it explained on the video because I forgot to mention it. Alright, and like I said, that will, and you don't have to have that back key checked either. Keep that unchecked. It's not necessary, because you don't want to see it on the screen, you know what I'm saying? It's just like a placeholder for most parts. So placeholders you don't want to see for the most part, so just uncheck it. Alright, and that will, and then also make sure that your room 1 is also the same width and height. And you don't have to worry about the views for both room 0 and 1 because you're not dealing with camera view. So you don't need to have, don't enable the use of views. Do not enable visible on room starts. So all this is not going to apply because you're not enabling it. If you were to enable it, then you would have to change the width and height here for the view in room and port on screen to what it says here for width and height for the settings. But we're not dealing with this because we're not dealing with camera view. We're not dealing with a character running on screen. So none of this has to be checked. So it's not gonna do anything to the game. It's not gonna mess up the height and width. That's another thing I didn't explain in the landscape, but I will try to explain that in the description on YouTube about the views. Like, you don't need this checked. Alright, this only needs to be checked when you're dealing with the player and dealing with the camera view, when the camera view is following the character. So you don't need this checked for the splash screen or the main title screen. Alright, well, this will conclude the video, and thank you.